AM by Arctic Monkeys is the fifth album by the band from Sheffield, which was undeniably popular on Tumblr.com, but also just in the world in general. Let's tackle the nostalgia and see how good it is 12 years later. You're watching Tumblr Retrospective on The Current. I should probably also mention that this is the first time I'm refilming a video. I filmed this yesterday, but I was feeling a bit under the weather. I got a cold. I just decided that I was not happy with how I filmed it, so here I am shooting it again. Arctic Monkeys is a four-piece band from Sheffield in the United Kingdom, fronted by singer, lyricist, guitarist, and keyboardist Alex Turner, with Matt Helders on drums, Jamie Cook on guitar, and Nick O'Malley on bass guitar. As opposed to the other artists I've covered on this series so far, Arctic Monkeys was in a very different time of their career. They were in their late 20s and had just released their fifth studio album. In a particular interview, Alex Turner had mentioned, after being asked about goals, what there was still left to do. That was something that he was wondering as well in the interview, and he mentioned dedicating his work to the love of music for the rest of his career, rather than trying to play bigger stages, more stadiums, release more chart-topping albums, because they had done so at this point in their career. If you're an Arctic Monkeys fan, it is no secret that this album is a huge departure from where they were in their previous releases. In an interview with The Guardian, they were asked if it was a result of boredom with what they were doing previously, or are they just feeling the most confident that they have up until that point? And then they said, maybe a bit of both, really. While I think the last record had its merits, it felt like once we started playing it live, it kind of exhausted itself pretty quickly. That's why we wrote Are You Mine? The tour had gone on for nearly a year, and it was like, maybe we need something fresh. Upon writing that tune, we discovered that there was something on the other side of that door, and the rest of the record is really just exploring that. The next excerpt is from La Musicale, a video interview that they did in 2013. You started recording after touring with the Black Keys in 2012, right? That's correct, yeah. Did you want to take that energy from touring into the studio? That was the plan, wasn't it, Matthew? Originally we did. We put a song out just before that Black Keys tour called Are You Mine, which we included in the LP, because that was just the impetus for the rest of the record, really. The plan was, because Are You Mine got such a good reaction, and we all felt it was the best song we'd had for ages, when we played it live during that Black Keys tour, you could just feel it. There was so much energy, you'd get a lot of it back from the crowd with that particular tune. So our plan was to make a whole record that would surround that song. In particular, I think it's a bit difficult to talk about this album in the context of Tumblr, just because it was so widely popular. Like, it was not just popular on Tumblr, it was popular everywhere. Got 5-star reviews round and round. Not everybody liked it. Apparently it's an album that people are a bit divided over, but I think that the album and Arctic Monkeys in general was so popular on Tumblr is because of a couple of reasons. If you know, you know. But there's a specific type of way that people on Tumblr talk and type. I think it's the fact that you can probably tell that most users were very good at English class. They like to spell and use words properly, use proper punctuation, and have an interest in literature, and particularly romantasy novels or novels of any kind. There's many books that have gone extremely viral on the platform, like The Hunger Games and The Fault in Our Stars, to name a few obvious ones. But it's no secret that Tumblr.com has a fascination with literature and writing, and the platform itself hosts many writers in more ways than one. And I think that's part of the reason why the site is so infatuated with Alex Turner in particular. He's a very romantic, dreamy kind of writer. For example, the letter that he wrote to Alexa Chung like a long time ago will still run its course on the website. And I think a lot of girls just kind of fawn over him because his writing is so romantic. And besides that, he is obviously also very attractive. Something that I enjoyed observing while I was doing research for this video is the fact that many female interviewers would be kind of swept off their feet by the way he would look at them or how he would say their names, things that he would say to them.
It's going to take a lot more than a haircut to get me close to Elvis, Emma. Of course, but there's something about the crooner inside you that comes out that we can hear in your voice.
All right, well,
definitely on this album.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, you can.
Wonderful vocals at the end. Maybe that's what hooked you into that one.
Maybe that was it. Mm-hmm. That was the big selling point. No, Arctic Monkeys, you guys are incredible.
Oh, just like that?
Yeah, just like that.
From downtown.
When you're doing the headline set, how do you make it as good as it's been tonight? Because you did nail it completely.
Thank you, Joe. Hey, you stop it. Thank you.
It is just something that he is quite notorious for, and that's something that they explored on this album as well. It is probably known as the sexy album, or the first sexy album that they tried to make after, you know, Favorite Worst, Nightmare, Humbug, Suck It In See, etc. But yeah, the success of this album can't be understated. It is very difficult to talk about it just in the context of Tumblr, because besides the timing of this album, which was very convenient with the 1975 album and the Neighborhood album that came out around the same time, that had very strong black and white eras that would exist alongside each other. Not only would it get reblogged time and time again because of the aesthetic album cover, and everybody would have that picture of the album cover on their phone, or would take a picture of the vinyl that they owned, take a picture of the CD that they owned, and I was one of those people. I would like to show you what I own. So for example, here we have the physical album, which is actually just made of paper. It is not like a classic plastic case as you would get it normally. I would show you the lyric book, but it's a bit boring. It is literally just black with white letters and then a number for each track, and the CD itself has this logo on it. Because I like this album so much, when I was in HMV when I was 18, I decided I would also get just the single for Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High. This one just has one song on it, doesn't have anything else, just this. And something that I thought was interesting while doing research for this video as well was the comparisons that Arctic Monkeys were getting to Black Sabbath. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about this online, but if you put their fonts next to each other, especially from this era, they are the same. So I think that inspiration goes further than just the use of that font, but I thought that was interesting and I wanted to mention that. So let's talk about the album cover. And I could actually find stuff about this album cover this time. On the album cover we see a AM radio wave displayed, which was actually first drawn on a tissue by Alex Turner himself. They turned it into the album cover. And something that I also noticed, sometimes when people draw this, they miss out on this particular detail, but in the middle here it says AM. So the album title is AM because it's an acronym for the band name. It's funny because it has a triple meaning of some sort, like the AM radio wave, AM for Arctic Monkeys, but also the nighttime is mentioned a lot on this album, particularly on the lead single, Do I Wanna Know? The night is mainly made for things that you can't say during the day. But yeah, I particularly really like this album cover. It's just very simplistic and minimalist, but instantly recognizable. And I don't think we've had an album cover like this since, really. And what I also like is that they really explored this theme on the music video for Do I Wanna Know? And they animated a lot of it, which I think is really cool. And I wish there was more media like that in music. So let's get into the songs. We were already just talking about Are You Mine and Do I Want to Know a little bit. I think the reason that this album was so big on Tumblr is the fact that Alex Turner is just a poet. Like, if we take the line, there's this tune I found that makes me think of you somehow, and I play it on repeat until I fall asleep. Guys need to get back on this type of level of romanticism. Like, doesn't everybody want someone to fawn over them in that way? The song is just so incredibly sexy, and the yearning in it is incredibly relatable. I remember I particularly had this song on repeat when it came out. I was obsessed with it. I really, really liked it. And I think it still holds up. It's definitely a timeless classic. You can put this on in any context and it would work. What I also found was interesting during research for this record is the influences that were mentioned, namely being Drake, Aaliyah, Dr. Dre, and Timbaland. Well, they were trying to mimic the way R&B builds the songs as opposed to the way it sounds. And Alex Turner had cited that he wanted the album to sound good in a car, the way 50 Cent's In the Club does. We had this idea for a record where you can take the compositional perspective of an R&B producer and apply that to a 4-piece rock and roll band, manipulating our instruments to make building blocks for the song in a way I'd imagine Timbaland or someone constructs music. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is we just made it up. Lots of the content on this album is about girls and drinking, particularly One for the Road, where it just combines those two elements. Then we have Arabella, which is a fan favorite. For me, not so much. I think the way the song is structured is a little bit too simplistic and it leaves a lot of room. I'm personally looking for something that's a little bit more stimulating. I like some of the other songs on the album a lot more, but I will say that guitar solo at the end is very good. Then we have I Want It All. I saw this one get a little bit of criticism online, saying that it's the least good song on this album. However, I feel like they really needed this song on this record to kind of appease fans who are very much big fans of their first 4 albums. For me, it just really sounds like something that could have been on Suck It and See, or maybe even Favorite Worst Nightmare. But it's also a bridge to their future records. Like if you take a look at the second verse, it's just kind of reciting a memory in a very sweet way, talking about miniature whiskey and sharing a Coke. And I think that's kind of the way that they started approaching their future albums after this one, trying to be a little bit more tongue-in-cheek and take those little details and really paint a picture. Then we have Number One Party Anthem, and I just realized this morning when I was listening to it that this is kind of Cornerstone's little sister, just because it has a sweat on the wall reference. And this was my personal favorite when I was very young. I remember particularly being too drunk at my own party and feeling a little bit sick. Some of my friends that I'm not friends with anymore were saying that they needed to turn it off because it was too slow and boring for the party, even though the song is literally called Number One Party Anthem. But I needed the song to feel better at that time, and I had instructed my friend to tell everybody to not turn it off. So yeah, if you want to know what I'm like at a party, that's your answer. Then we have Mad Sounds. It's sad because this song doesn't stand out that much, but it's Alex Turner going into a different direction as opposed to what he's very used to writing about, which is women. But this song is just not just an ode to loving women, but an ode to loving music. And I just thought that that was so cute and just kind of experimenting with the subject material. Again, that would be practice for what they would do on their other 2 albums that came out after this. Alex Turner starting to try out different ways of experiencing and looking at life and describing them in a little silly kind of way. We have Fireside, and I liked learning about this song because Alex Turner had described that they made the rhythm section the way it is because lusting after someone can be quite a rocky road or crashing waves, and getting to the other person can sometimes just be a little bit of a bumpy road, and they wanted the song to reflect that sonically. I don't really think I have to talk about the main other really popular song from this album, which is called Why'd You Only Call Me When You're High. This song has many cool covers, and it is probably one of the pillars of their discography at this point. I clearly really like this song. I just don't really have that much to say about it that isn't said already. I'll start wrapping it up a little bit, but I also just wanted to talk about Knee Socks. And here we really notice how Alex Turner is a writer that can be a little bit more poetic, but kind of giving literature as well, because this song paints such a specific scenery. There's a few facts about this song that I wanted to share, as in the situation that it's describing. It's in the early winter, so either January or early February. It's a Tuesday. It's a late afternoon, and it took a while for Alex Turner to get to know the person that this song is about. I especially love the epic, almost belty meandering that's playing in the background at the end of the song. It has some crazy effects on his vocal, and I just love it, and just adds so much atmosphere and moodiness to the song, particularly the line about the zeros lining up on the 24-hour clock. Oh, like, that's so specific, but it just, you visualize it in your mind the moment that you hear it, and I just think that this is one of the best songs on this album. Then we have I Wanna Be Yours, and it is actually taking a lot of inspiration from this poem by John Cooper Clarke. The Arctic Monkeys have a special relationship with John Cooper Clarke because he was actually the first person to tell them that he really liked their band name and that they shouldn't change it, and that's why they always stuck with Arctic Monkeys. And I do actually particularly have a specific Tumblr reference to this one, because who remembers the 5% slowed version that users would share. And I think that might be one of the first instances of slowed music. And again, I'm not trying to discredit chopped and screwed music, but you have to admit that's a completely different ballpark, because slowed music would take off on TikTok literally years later. And it's just funny how people would comment like, oh, it's almost better, it almost works better in this way, it makes it more lustful, it makes it sexier, it makes it more romantic. And again, like, it's just the perfect song to close off this album, this very romantic and sexy album that is about lust and love. And I mean, can you get much sexier than wanting to be a vacuum cleaner, breathing in someone's dust? And like, it's a bit silly, but if you think about it, like, if you're really, really, really lusting over someone, that is genuinely how you feel. I'm not gonna lie, it was challenging for me to revisit this album because there's just so much information about this album on the internet, and like I said, it was just popular in general. Somehow I felt like I just couldn't leave it out. It is an essential part of Tumblr music, and Arctic Monkeys in general is just a part of Tumblr music. Particularly 505 from Favorite Worst Nightmare, that has to be the Tumblr song. It's probably the most quoted. It is probably the song that has the most GIFs made out of it. But yeah, I could definitely say this album is still good, but I remember listening to it at the time and just thinking, this is an instant classic. I can't hear how this would age badly, and it hasn't. It's just very nice to have on in the background. It is an album that works in any setting, with any group of people, and honestly, hats off to them for making an album that is so timeless. So I wish I would have more to tell you when it came to where Arctic Monkeys are now. I just saw a few headlines of Matt Helders helping out with the LA fires and raising funds. There's some rumors flying around of Alex Turner being married, but you know, they're heading into their 40s now. So again, it's crazy to think about, because when they made this album, they were in their late 20s and they were at a very different point in their career. So they just kind of must feel like they've seen it all. However, you know, you make music because you love making music. So I'm sure there's something in the pipeline. There was a very long article that I read that was kind of speculating on whether something was coming. However, there's no official announcement. The members are very much missing in action. There's not that much that you can find on the internet about what each member is doing. And you know what? Fair. We just had COVID. They did a massive tour, what was it, like 2 years ago? And I saw them at a festival and a headlining show, and, you know, I think the Elvis comparisons might have gotten to Alex Turner's head, but still, they're a lovely band. They have a great discography, and, you know, they can definitely be proud of that. And, yeah, check out this album today if you haven't in a long time. I would definitely really recommend it. It's a really fun listen. It's really nice to have on. No skip. Thank you so much for watching today. Thank you for bearing with me while refilming and editing this before I could even put it up. Look forward to another video next week, and enjoy the rest of your weekend or your Monday tomorrow. Have a good beginning to your week. Peace.